Greetings and welcome to our final review in the mid-2019 video review series. What a ride it's been. I've had the joy of bringing you some deleted cigars, some long-missed cigars, and some underrated regular production cigars that cigar enthusiasts don't normally reach for. Now, in today's review, I must let you know before I start the review that I was thinking of doing the El Rey del Mundo Tanos, the Taiwanese regional edition, as a final review. However, in the time that I was thinking about it, El Prez brought out an incredible Christmas sampler. And look, they've been fantastic the last few years, but this one's been, I think, special really, with the cigars that are included. And well, you may not be aware, but the El Rey del Mundo Tanos, Formosa regional edition or Taiwanese regional dishes, is included in that Christmas sampler. So we may bring you a Christmas sampler video review series down the track, and if that happens, which it will likely happen, and likely with Luca, the El Rey del Mundo Tanos review will be in that. So in the meantime, I thought, look, I'll just do a staple that people who do video reviews are not likely to do, but my goal today is just to give you some background information to, a cigar that when people that don't know cigars think of Cuban cigars, they think of the Montecristo No. 4. Now, the reason I haven't lit it up is because I just wanted to savor that beautiful cold raw a bit longer. It's got the most beautiful combination of cocoa and sweet hay, barnyard flavour. It's really refined. It's really, really, how can I put it in words? It's one of those rare times where you actually don't want to light up the cigar because the cold draw is that good. But I am going to light up a cigar, otherwise there'll be no review. And what I'll do is I'll pause the video at this moment and light it up and come back. First puffs, and glorious in one simple word. I've been fortunate. This box has been very, very good. And yeah, that's just smoking like pretty much the rest of the box with some gorgeous nut and citrus, which we'll talk about the flavours later. But before I do that, I just wanted to give some background on the Montecristo No. 4, and more specifically the Montecristo marker, just so that you come to a greater appreciation of why we're here, why this Montecristo 4 has such a high reputation, or why it's so well known amongst Habano cigars. Montecristo as a brand came into being in 1935. A fellow named Alonso Menendez, basically what had happened was he bought out a very popular brand at the time, Particularis, and in establishing his cigar factory, he went into partnership with another fellow nicknamed Pepe Garcia, and what he found was that his rollers, his torcedores, to this day, this tradition continues. When people roll cigars, they have books read to them, and the one book that his rollers liked to listen to was the Count of Montecristo. So he decided to bring out a new brand and call it Montecristo. Now, in regards to the Montecristo brand, it just seems to be like a perfect storm of adverse events, I've got to say. Things that you don't wish upon Cuban manufacturers or people that make cigars for it to happen to them. So firstly, Menendez bought out the H. Upmann factory because that wasn't doing well, and that was owned by J. Frankow. Yes, from England. He bought that out in 1937, moved his Montecristo production over into that factory, where it's still made. Now, this leads us on to the fact that J. Frankow at the time had exclusive distribution rights for H. Upmann in Britain. So you're probably wondering, what does this relate to the Montecristo? Basically, in 1963, John Hunter Morris and Enkel went into partnership with J. Frankow, and they became Hunters and Frankow. Now, John Hunter Morris and Enkel, that company had exclusive distribution of Montecristo. Hence, from then on in, Hunters and Frankow were the exclusive distributors in England or in Britain of Montecristo, and from there on, the market grew more and more and more. Now, in the meantime, the Cuban Revolution happened. At the time that it happened, cigar manufacturing in Cuba remained independent. There were a lot of Cuban brands. I think I was reading this morning, we go from memory here, I think there were 140 brands. I read off Cuban Cigar website, 140 brands, markers, that exported their product, and 1,185 tolls, if you can imagine that. And of course, for those of you that aren't aware, a lot of you are that are watching this video, Fidel Castro came in September 1960 and nationalised Cuban cigar production, took over, and basically 140 brands became 25 brands overnight. And Montecristo was one of those brands that was kept. Menendez and Garcia tried to establish a brand later on. They had trademark issues, I think, in the Canary Islands with the US embargo. But the Montecristo brand was rebranded, I guess, in a non-Cuban format, as a lot of other Cuban brands were, due to the US embargo. But after the Cuban government took over and Menendez and Garcia had gone, where the head roller, I forgot his name, his surname I think was Garcia, he basically took over the production of Montecristo, and again, through adverse circumstances, this man comes along and decides to expand the famous Montecristo number 1, number 2, number 3, number 4, number 5. Decides to bring out a Montecristo Specialis or Special, I should say, and a Montecristo Specialis number 2, which amongst my most favourite Montecristo cigars, and a few other releases. I think Joy Eater's Montecristo A's. I think the Montecristo B and the Montecristo 6 number 7 came around that time. So the brand started to grow. But if you want to know at what point did Montecristo become the brand of Cuban cigars, it was due to the marketing help of Dunhill in the 70s. They really helped to make that brand really, really strong. And the Montecristo number 4, which I'm smoking today, became the number 1 selling cigar in the world. Now, Habanos SA don't really release sales figures, but they did about 12, 13 years ago, they let the public know that our Montecristo No. 4 was a high-selling cigar. It accounted for about 8% of all sales, which is a lot. I've no doubt that it would be up there. I don't think it'd be 8% today, but it would be a lot. From my understanding, in the meantime, the Partagas Series D No. 4 is the highest selling title in the world. This is what is colloquially understood, not confirmed, but it's colloquially understood as the number 1 selling title in the world. And I would say the Montecristo No. 4 is number 2. The second highest selling cigar. Now, for those of us that are familiar with this cigar, the cigar enthusiasts that know cigars, what is it that keeps drawing us back to this cigar? Because if you smoked a number of this, you would know how inconsistent they are in terms of, I would brand, flavour delivery, perhaps construction, but mainly flavour delivery. I find out of all the cigars that I enjoy, that I have in my humidor, this is up there as the type of cigar that I would think, I wonder what it's going to give me today. And the thing that keeps me at it is the fact that when it's on, it's amongst the very best cigars in my humidor in terms of flavour. Now, I've been fortunate. I've got this UEB May 2018 box, which is a box code from 2018 that's highly reputable, and I've gone through about half the box, and apart from just one, they've practically been outstanding to stellar. This cigar is continuing that tradition. The main thing that it has in it is that I would best describe it as like a citrus twang flavour that really forms its spine, and a nut. The coffee and cocoa isn't as dominant, but I'm fine with that. I find that when it comes to Montecristo 4s and number 2s, I've had, and this is just my understanding from smoking a number of maybe years. Number 2s, number 4s, when the wrapper's darker, they're going to give you that more of that stronger coffee and cocoa flavours. When the wrapper's lighter, they're going to give you more of that cream, biscuit, nut flavours. Maybe leather, maybe not. But again, it's just a generalisation. But these have been mainly nut, citrus twang flavour, which I adore, and I'm grateful to be smoking today. So basically what I want to say is, when I mentioned before that the UEB May 2018 box is a highly reputable box, it brings us to an understanding that Montecristo number 4s and number 2s, because they sell in such high volume, they're not the type of cigar that you buy blind. You go to your retailer and you ask for specific box codes, and you get them. If you can possibly get them cherry picked, because when they're not on, there's no sugarcoating, and they could just be very ordinary. We did a recent poll on the forum in terms of which cigars are the most inconsistent, or which brands, and Romeo and Juliet, Punch, and Montecristo were up there. And I can understand from smoking those cigars the variance that you can get in terms of flavour delivery. And incidentally, just smoking this today, through the first third. I'm just loving it. And it's just weaving a charm on me because I'm not thinking of those times when I've had bland Montecristo No. 4s, and I've said to myself, why have I done this to myself? But anyway, I'm grateful that I've still got half a box. What I'm going to do is I'm going to smoke this down, come back into the middle third, and see how it's progressing. So I've smoked it down into just past the middle third, and while I was smoking, I was just reflecting upon how fortunate that we even have the Montecristo brand, because I mentioned earlier in the review that a number of brands went by the wayside. Montecristo only came around in 1935, and it survived and became one of the global brands. Big global brands, big selling global brands. At the moment, with Habanos SA's classification, there are 6 global brands. We've mentioned these in our video review series a number of times, but the global brands that have the most Vitolas. One thing I can tell you about the Montecristo brand and the Cohiba, they don't tend to get deleted. Now, as enthusiasts, we talk about a lot about discontinuations and are disappointed with that. But in the last 20 years, there hasn't been a Montecristo cigar that's been deleted, or a Cohiba for that matter. And I think the last count I saw, there was 23 Vitolas in the Montecristo market. So it's it sells. 23 after you include the Linea 1935 series, which probably deserves a review all on its own, but we won't discuss that now. In regards to the flavours in the middle third, the difference has been it's picked up a little bit in cocoa and a little bit in cream, so it's been really, really enjoyable. I've retrohaled it a few times. And it's very easy to retrohale through the nose. Excuse me. So, not too spicy. It's got that not much. I wouldn't say there's that much of a tingle there either. It's just got that. Maybe a little bit of a tingle. More of the qualities of those characteristics I picked up in the cold draw. Believe it or not, through the nose. Yeah, it's interesting. So one of the other things I wanted to mention is the question of, aging Montecristo. It does come up. My preference in regards to that is in the Montecristo brand, I very much like aging the thinner ring gauge Montecristo Special and the Montecristo Specialis No. 2. They really lend themselves to long-term rest for me. My preference in general with cigars that have a strong cocoa characteristic to them, I don't find a large benefit in aging. I think they're okay to go 10 years or longer, but they're not going to be that much better just for me past the 5-year mark. I've had a Montecristo No. 4 over 20 years, and that was really, really interesting. When it was at that age, there wasn't really any cocoa or cream left. The main flavours were, it had a walnut and floral element to it. So it was quite, as you can imagine, it was quite mild, very mild. So even at that 20-year mark, the Montecristo 4 I didn't say that it had expired, but it didn't meet my preferences. I liked it, but I'd much prefer it, like this. Often I smoke them, within 1 or 2, 3 window. But my preference again is to have that slight citrus twang, that citrus zest to it when they're like that. Uh, they just hit the sweet spot for me. Now, of all the main Montecristo cigars, you might be wondering which ones are the most consistent that I've smoked in my time. The number one most consistent Montecristo cigar to give me that flavour most often would be the Montecristo Specialis number 2. And believe it or not, the Montecristo number 1. I find them quite consistent, but others, maybe I've not smoked enough of them. Tend to favour certain vitolas within this marker. So, for example, the Montecristo number 3. Now, maybe I should get a box. Every time they come up on 24, invariably they're left, which is a shame. That I have the word I'm looking for is I have a sentimentality to the size of the Montecristo number 3 because it's about half an inch longer than this. But once upon a time, pretty much every Habanos marker had a Corona size, and a lot of them have been deleted in the last 20 years. And the Montecristo 3 is one of those, as I said, because it doesn't get deleted. It's still around, like the Montecristo number 1. A lot of Lonsdales have been deleted, but it's still around, and I'm grateful for that. I do have Montecristo number 1s, but I don't have 3s. And what I recommend is, if you are a fan of Montecristo, give the 1 and the 3 a go. If you like the 4, as I said earlier, do not buy them blind, because you'll probably be aware how how inconsistent they are in terms of their flavour delivery. What I'm going to do is I'm going to leave it there and come back when it's into the last third, and now it's coming along, coming into the last third now, and every bit as good as it's been all along. Again, in the time that I was smoking through the middle third, I was reflecting on trends in regards to Cuban cigars, and they change over time. So at the moment, the premium marker in the Habanos catalogue, without a doubt, is Cohiba. Before that, Davidoff. Now, who was to know that Davidoff would... the relationship between Davidoff and the Cuban government would sour in the 80s, and they pulled out and wanted to they used non-Cuban leaf, and Cohiba came along. But before Davidoff, believe it or not, in the 40s and 50s, the premium marker was El Rey del Mundo, the king of the world. Probably might not know that. It's just an example that cigar trends change, and in the same way that the Montecristo number 4 was a high-selling cigar, now the Partagas D4, I have mentioned, not in this video review series, but on our forum, that I think Simon Chase mentioned in a video review with Nick Wing. You could look at the half-hour interview from 2015. He was reflecting on the fact that the Partagas series D number 4 in the 60s sold 5,000 boxes worldwide, believe it or not, and that Robusto size was not very popular. And 50, 60 years, things change. So, for example, even if we look in the last 12 to 24 months, who could have predicted the resurgence of Kidosei as a brand with the number 50 and number 54? It's just one of those things. The Montecristo number 4. Who knows? We may look at this video review 10 or 20 years and look back and see other cigars that come and usurp the popularity of this cigar. And again, we may not. The Romeo and Juliet at Churchill, it's been around forever. It's still a very popular Churchill. May or may not. We don't know. In the meantime, I'm enjoying this for what it is. A beautiful light cocoa, coffee, nut and cigar with a citrus twang spine. Just gorgeous. Now, one of the last things I'll leave you with is Luke and I had been mentioning retrohaling in this video review series, and I had wanted to do a poll, and recently I did online because a specific poll hadn't been done, but the topic had come up on our forum a number of times over the years, a few times, and in 2010 it was probably, I don't know, 60-40 or 50-50, but interesting results of that retrohale poll was that 60% of members retrohale all the time, but only 10% don't, and 30% do on occasion. I would, or every now and then, and on occasion, I'd put myself as in the on occasion category. It's still very nice to retrohale into the last third. Again, that's just personal preference. But you do pick up some things through retrohaling. It certainly has a little bit more tingle and spice now in the last third, but it is only a year old. Anyway, I did not mean to do such a long review, and thank you for your patience and thank you for your company in this video review series. I hope that it's helped you in your journey. Thank you very, very much. It's been a joy to bring these videos to you. I look forward to the next video review series. Hopefully, likely that will be the 2019 Christmas sample review series. Until then, happy smoking.